Let's hail the midsummer. Let's hail some hot delicacies during this midsummer. Welcome once again to News Analysis. News Analysis, a weekly magazine on current affairs. To begin with the main points in a nutshell. US shifts focus to press China for market access. US shifts focus to press China for market access. Karzai postpones seating parliament, deepening Afghan crisis. Tunisian opposition pushes for coalition changes. Blackwater founders set to back mercenaries. Fired Renault executive blames tricks by a rival. Iraq, legal advice was provisional, Tony Blair. And now the news in detail. US shifts focus to press China for market access. A year ago, the fight over how China's cheap currency was hurting American companies in marketplaces at home and abroad was shaping to be the epic battle between the world's biggest power and the biggest economic rival. But when President Hu Jintao walks into the Eisenhower Executive Office building with President Obama on Wednesday to face a group of 18 American and Chinese business leaders, much of the clash will be about a new economic battlefield inside China itself. A series of trade restrictions imposed by the Chinese government within China, including administrative controls, requirements to transfer sophisticated technology, state subsidies to favor domestic companies, and so-called indigenous laws meant to favor homegrown business, have anchored many American manufacturing high-tech companies, which are rapidly finding themselves cut out of the world's fastest-growing market. The result is that two countries have to resolve a wider range of economic tensions, including what American multinational corporations see as a deteriorating environment for investing and making money in what has become the world's second-largest economy. So it's no longer just a fight over cheap Chinese textile, electronic toy and imports. China won the battle years ago. Now the question, reminiscent of trade tensions with Japan in the 1980s, is whether General Electric and Microsoft and other American companies that dearly want to expand into China's rapidly expanding markets will find themselves beaten at their own game by Chinese companies, backed by the Chinese government, competing at every point in the technology spectrum, said Ishwar Shankar Prasad, a former economist with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, who now teaches trade policy at Cornell University. Obama pushes Hu on rights but stresses ties to China. President Obama on Wednesday gently but pointedly prodded China to make progress on human rights, but he sought to focus most of the attention during a closely watched state visit with President Hu Jintao on the expanding economy's relationship between the United States and its biggest economic rival. Mr. Obama said that the differences on human rights were an occasional source of tension between our two governments. As the two leaders stood side by side at a nationally televised news conference, he called on China to live up to human rights values that said were enshrined in the Chinese constitution, adding that Americans have some core views as Americans about the universality of certain rights, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly.
This is our 8th meeting. Together we've shown that the United States and China, when we cooperate, can receive substantial benefits. The positive, constructive, cooperative U.S.-China relationship is good for the United States. We just had a very good meeting with the business leaders from both our countries. And they pointed out that China is one of the top markets for American exports. We're now exporting more than $100 billion a year in goods and services to China, which supports more than 500,000 American jobs. In fact, our exports to China are growing nearly twice as fast as our exports to the rest of the world, making it a key part of my goal of doubling American exports and keeping America competitive in the 21st century. Cooperation between our countries is also good for China. China's extraordinary economic growth has lifted hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, and this is a tribute to the Chinese people. But it's also thanks to decades of stability in Asia, made possible by America's forward presence in the region, by strong trade with America, and by an open international economic system championed by the United States of America. Cooperation between our countries.
Karzai postponed seating parliament, deepening Afghan crisis. President Hamid Karzai ordered a month's delay in seating a new parliament on Wednesday, heightening a constitutional crisis that threatens to fuel bitter infighting and potentially even violence among the country's rival factions. The move leaves Afghanistan without a parliament 5 months after its September election, with prospect of even further delays. It also puts Mr. Karzai squarely at odds with his international backers, who insist that the elections were valid after investing heavily in them as a way to promote Afghanistan's fledgling democracy. Mr. Karzai made his decision at the request of a special court he personally appointed to hear complaints from losing candidates who say fraud and insecurity left large parts of the population excluded from the vote. Many are from heavily Pashtun South, where the insurgency is most intense, and Mr. Karzai maintains his main political base. Tunisian opposition pushes for coalition changes. Demonstrators marched in Tunis on Wednesday to call for all members of the party of the ousted dictator Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali to withdraw from the newly formed interim government. Interim leaders scrambled Wednesday to distance themselves further from the government of the ousted leaders as opposition officials weighed whether to mount an effort to push out most of the cabinet members from the old ruling party. Both sides of the unity government, the new minority from the ranks of Tunisia's tiny legal opposition parties, and the leaders from the old ruling party appeared to be responding to popular anger that so many of the same faces remained in influential posts in the government even after President Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali had fled.
The Ummah for Shura, he speaks about democracy and he is behaving undemocratically. Democracy in ideological sense entails tolerating the other even to the level of a blasphemy. We are not advocating this kind of democracy. We advocate, if you wish to call it Islamic democracy, meaning shura, election, accountability of the government. But there's not enough time for these deep philosophical issues. Let's go back to the situation. The situation in the Arab and Muslim countries, mostly, especially the Arab countries, is very well known. He knows that very well after Sykes-Picot and the division of the remainder of the Khilafah Uthmaniyya between the imperial powers and then installing of puppet regimes or creating puppet regimes, like the Saudi regime. Saudi Arabia is a British creation, is a system built custom for the British Empire and later on inherited.
Blackwater founders said to back mercenaries. Eric Prince, the founder of the international security giant Blackwater Worldwide, is backing an effort by a controversial South African mercenary firm to insert itself into the Somalia's bloody civil war by protecting government leaders, training Somali troops, and battling pirates and Islamic militants there, according to American and Western officials. The disclosure comes as Mr. Prince sells off his interest in the company he built into behemoth with billions of dollars in American government contracts in Iraq and Afghanistan. Work that mired him in lawsuits and investigations amid reports of reckless behavior by his operatives, including causing the deaths of civilians in Iraq. His efforts to wade into the chaos of Somalia appear to be Mr. Prince's latest endeavor to remain at the center of a campaign against Islamic radicalism in some of the world's most war-ravaged corners. Mr. Prince moved to United Arab Emirates late last year. Mr. Prince's precise role remains unclear. Some Western officials said that it was possible Mr. Prince was using his international contacts to help broker a deal between Saracen executives and officials from the United Arab Emirates, which have been financing Saracen in Somalia because Emirates' business operations have been threatened by Somali pirates.
I'm one of the attorneys for Brad and Milan Davis, who are two former employees of Mr. Prince and Blackwater. And we've been very eager to depose Mr. Prince as he is really involved in the day-to-day operations of Blackwater and their subsidiary companies. So we filed a motion to compel with the court to depose Mr. Prince. The day before that hearing, we found out that he was moving to Abu Dhabi. So we made that 16-hour flight to Abu Dhabi, where Mr. Prince has since moved, and conducted a 7-hour deposition with him. We can't really speak about what happened in the deposition.
Let's say you got him.
We finally got him.
Fired Renault executive blames strikes by rival. An executive of the French automaker Renault, who was fired over accusations that he had sought to pass on secrets of the company's electric car program, said Thursday that he believed the company had been the victim of a dirty trick by a rival. In his first interview with an English-language newspaper since he was fired, the former executive Matty Tenbaum, 33, said that while he had no evidence, he was leading towards the hypothesis that Renault had been duped into acting on the mistaken conviction that it had a traitor in its ranks. "We are collateral damage," he said to himself and two other colleagues Renault fired. "Renault would be the target and we would be the collateral damage."
So my name is Mathieu Tenenbaum. I'm Deputy Program Director for EV Program at Renault. I'm especially the Project Director for Twizy, which we present today at Le Web 10.
Fantastic. You guys are actually giving one away today, right?
Oh yes, I think we will give one away next year, but you will win today if you're the most influenced blogger, or if you can tweet your Twizy that you can create on our desk over there. And basically, it's not about the best design, but it's about who is the most influenced at the web.
Okay. So what would you think would be the greatest thing that would happen if somebody would win it?
I think that if the guy who win it is kind of influenced, so for us at Renault, what is important is he can also continue to be involved in our program.